and welcome to the Secular Nation podcast, brought to you by the Atheist Alliance of America. Before we get to our guests, as a program note, in the previous episode, I quoted the email address of the Secular Nation podcast as podcast@secularnation.us. That was incorrect. The correct email address is info@secularnation.us. We apologize to any listeners who may have emailed podcast@secularnation.us and are now on an NSA watch list. So again, let me repeat. Our email address is info@secularnation.us. Our guest for today is American Atheist President David Silverman. Hello, I'm Tim Brannon with our new guest, David Silverman.
Hello.
And Michael X. So we met at the Women in Secularism conference last month. We had a great time meeting you, hanging out with a lot of cool people.
Yeah, actually, Michael X and I go back about a decade.
Yeah,
more than that.
Yeah. Back. Now I'm trying to remember the exact acronym of the organization we were in. Is the Alliance of Lucent and AT&T Agnostics, or Atheists and Skeptics? Was that it?
Very close. Atheists and Secularists.
Secularists, excuse me.
Alliance of Lucent and AT&T Atheists and Secularists. That was ALAS. The tagline was, "We haven't got a prayer."
That's right.
Because that was totally original. And we were the first atheist group in AT&T and Lucent Technologies. And that was a long time ago. That was 1994, 5, 6, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think
Wow.
I started there around 96. So yeah, that was around the time we met. I think I wrote a letter to the editor locally, and you gave me a call, and I was thrilled that somebody else in the building felt the same way.
Right. My goodness, that was it seems like so long ago.
It was, Dave. It was very long.
And it was very long ago. I remember putting up the signs and having the first meeting of ALAS was a full room, which I was really excited about. And a whole bunch of people were from my organization within Lucent, which did not make my boss very happy. My boss's boss, I should say, he was not happy about the fact that so many of his people were not only atheists, but they were actually in an atheist club, and I was the leader of the atheist club. He was not pleased with that at all.
Oh, that's funny. My group was fine. I mean, I work with a bunch of research psychologists, so they tend to be a bunch of atheists anyway.
Well, and you would have thought that the whole place was atheist, which is what I thought. But no, certainly there were there was a lot of cognitive dissonance, a lot of compartmentalization going on at Lucent. And unfortunately, one of them worked way above me, and unfortunately, he ended up firing me. But that's beside the point.
Oh.
Yeah, it's too bad. It was too bad. I'm actually very confident at this point that I was fired earlier than, I would have been fired anyways because Lucent was exploding at the time, imploding, I should say. But I was fired earlier than I should have been because I was an atheist. I'm sure of that.
Wow.
Or at least I'm very confident of it. Yeah, I'm very confident of it. He really didn't like me.
You know, it's funny because at this point I'm a manager now, and my big concern about my level, the reason why I've been using the moniker Michael X, is just because of my concern that some of the people on my team would incorrectly think that I would judge them on their performance or their, on anything because of religious beliefs, which is obviously not true at all. My joke is if I was prejudice against Christians in the workplace, I'd be a very, very busy man.
Well, yeah, but aren't you kind of helping to, or I should say, aren't you refusing to take advantage of a learning situation, a learning opportunity there when you're doing that, Michael?
Oh yeah,
you could really teach them. Oh no, I'm an atheist and I'm an added atheist, but I'm going to treat you all equally, and of course I'm going to treat you all equally. That's what that's what a good manager does. You've got kind of a teaching opportunity there, and by hiding yourself, you're kind of avoiding that teaching opportunity, don't you think?
Oh no, yeah, I appreciate that. I am open about my lack of belief, especially when it comes up. But my level of activism is something I don't go to my team. Hey, I've got a podcast or anything like that. For example, I was mentioned. I was mentioned in a blog post recently because my local town had a prayer reinstated in my local town, and I got quoted in different parts of the web with my real name, and some of the people on my team saw that, and a friend of mine, coworker of mine, came up to me and said, if you were one of the nicest, most decent people I've ever known, and if that's what being an atheist is, then that's terrific.
Yeah, I think that sort of goes into that recent story with Wolf Blitzer and the woman in the tornado, who he kind of put her in the spot, and when she said, for those of you living in the closet, where the woman who was the survivor of the tornado, Wolf Blitzer's all like, you got to thank the Lord, you got to thank the Lord, and she's kind of just, I'm an atheist, which I just thought that was so awesome, because I think that's just something a lot of us in the atheist, or just atheists in general, are often put in that situation where they have to say, I'm an atheist, for whatever reason. And she did that in front of a pundit on national TV, which I thought was unbelievably awesome. Like, even I, like, go on.
It was awesome. It was awesome for her, but it really lowered my opinion of Wolf Blitzer, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
It really, for him to be on the ground and saying, but you thank God, right? You thank the Lord, right? Mm-hmm. You want to thank God? It really lowered my opinion of him. I had placed him in my mind on a higher level than that. That was much less than I expected from him. It was such an obvious attempt to inject religiosity into a place where, of course, the three of us are atheists. Nobody says, well, everybody says, well, thank God my life was saved. Nobody ever says, gee, God sent the tornado here in the first place. Nobody ever does that. But the fact that Wolf Blitzer from CNN, well, yeah, of course they do, and they should, because that's consistent. But for Wolf Blitzer to come out and play, I mean, he was almost O'Reilly-esque. It was more like a Huckabee almost.
Do you think he was pandering?
So do you thank God? Do you think,
One of the things I was wondering is he pandering, or is he actually saying that you have to thank God in that case? In that sense, it's even more cynical.
It is. It's very depressing because those are the two options, and neither of them are good. Either he believes that crap, which I don't think he does, or he's pandering, which is worse because he comes from CNN, which is supposed to be above all that, but obviously is not. He's supposed to be CNN's supposed to be the thinking person's Fox News. But when he comes out with, so let's talk about God. Let's talk about God. You like God? Do you think God is good? Do you want to say God? Do you want to talk about the Lord? It was really a removal of Wolf Blitzer from the pedestal that I'd placed him on in my mind as being one of the better reporters. I now trust him less as a reporter because of that report. It's too bad.
Yeah, well, I think we'll get into your because you've made a number of appearances on the news media circuit, so we'll get into that later. But I think the big story right now is this monument in North Florida.
I'm really happy about the monument in North Florida. Yeah, well, the city is named Stark, Florida, and they have a big Ten Commandments monument on their front lawn. It was not placed there with city money. It was placed there with private funds from a Christian organization, and it was placed there because they had what's known as a free speech zone, which they probably made so that the Christian organization could put the Ten Commandments on the public courthouse. And when they call it a free speech zone, they're allowed to put that there because a free speech zone, by definition, means that anybody else can put something there too, so long as it conforms to certain parameters. And so American Atheists had a protest, and they did not take the commandments away. So, of course, we didn't expect them to. So we sued. And because the case that American atheists file, we file cases that we want to win. Okay, we don't file nuisance lawsuit cases. We file cases to win, and we usually win. And when we were looking at Stark, we realized this was a completely winnable case. It was a free speech zone. And there was plenty of room, and we had our own monument in mind, and we had to sue in order to get certain waivers, but those waivers were all granted. And the picture that I want people to understand is that the city of Stark settled with us to allow us to put a big atheist monument on their lawn because they knew they would lose a lawsuit. That's the only reason they did that. They knew they would lose a lawsuit. So they settled with us and allowed us to put our monument on there. And by the way, I'll just go on the record of saying that the officials in Stark have always been very professional and very courteous. We have not received any hostility from the city of Stark. Even though there was a lawsuit, there is no hostility. And the Men's Christian Fellowship, who put the Ten Commandments there, have agreed with us that we are doing something that's legal and lawful. So we are putting up our own monument, as is everybody's right. And our monument is a monument to atheists and the secular nature of our Constitution. One of the things that we put on the monument, it's a bench with a lot of carvings in it. So it's one of the carvings is a quote from Madalyn Murray O'Hair. There's something from Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, and John Adams. Then there's the quote from the Treaty of Tripoli. And then there's answers to the Ten Commandments, or I should say the penalties for breaking the Ten Commandments. And we put all this on there for all the specific reasons. The Madalyn Murray O'Hair quote. Madalyn Murray O'Hair, of course, founded American Atheists. She was known as the most hated woman in America. Her best quote talks about building hospitals instead of churches and living for today instead of after death and getting rid of poverty and getting rid of war. That's the most hated woman in America. Okay, so that's front and center of the monument. Then we all know that the Christian right loves to lie because, of course, if you tell the truth in religion, you won't have any followers. So religion lies about itself, and religion lies about its importance in the founding of this country. They say, oh, all the founding fathers were Christian, and they created a Christian nation based on the Christian laws. Well, that's what we're attacking with the Thomas Jefferson, the Treaty of Tripoli, the Thomas Jefferson, the John Adams, the Ben Franklin, and the Treaty of Tripoli quotes. The government of the United States is in no way founded in the Christian religion. This is a smoking gun, and it's important for people to realize that because it's important for people to understand how much religion lies about itself and this country in order to legitimize itself. And then the last part about this monument is the penalties for the Ten Commandments. And something that I feel very strongly about when it comes to the Ten Commandments. The vast majority of people in this country think the Ten Commandments is a set of benign, benevolent, ethical rules to which everybody can agree. You know, don't kill, don't steal. Those are the two that everybody knows. Some people know don't lie. Those are the ones that everybody knows, and they think it's benign and benevolent and should be agreeable by everyone. What they don't know is that the first commandment actually proscribes the death penalty for people like us.
Yes.
I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. The penalty for that is death by stoning.
Well, you know what?
Second commandment.
I'm sorry, Dave. I hate to interrupt you on this, but when you really look at it from a legalistic perspective, we don't put any gods before that God. They're all equally non-existent.
Well, this is true, but that's not the point. That's not the point of the message. Okay, Martin Luther wrote extensively about the first commandment, saying that this was a mandate to worship God. And it certainly is. I agree with him. And the penalty for not worshiping God is death by stoning by the people of the congregation. In other words, the first commandment dictates the first commandment is hate speech, okay? It actually dictates that I am to be killed and you are to be killed, okay? The second commandment dictates that all Catholics are cursed because they have a graven image. The third commandment, work on the Sabbath, death by stoning. Take the Lord's name in vain, God damn it, death by stoning. An unrespectful child, death by stoning. An adulterer, death. We're talking about a hateful, violent, awful document that should not be given any sort of reverence or any sort of special eye, and should definitely not be considered the basis for our Constitution. And so we're putting up the penalties for the Ten Commandments so that people know how little they know about their Bible. And one of the things that I want to make sure that people get is that the biggest problem that atheism has in this country is that Christians don't read their Bibles. If Christians would read their Bibles, there would be no more American atheists, because everybody would be an atheist and the separation of church and state would be lock solid. Okay, because nobody would want that to be law of the land. Nobody could read the Bible cover to cover, the so-called perfect word of God, and think that is law of the land.
Well, not only that, Wall Street, we would have no Madison Avenue or anything if we stopped coveting, for that matter.
Of course. It's the very basis for capitalism. You can't have capitalism without coveting. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I'm sitting here right now in my home office, and I'm looking at my bookshelf. And I have a lot of books. I have all the books that you would expect the president of American Atheists to have. And some of them are better than others, and some of them were written by people like Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, and those are great books. But if I had a book that I actually thought was written by the perfect creator of the universe, I think I'd read every word.
Yes.
I think I really would read every word of that book. And my statement to every Christian out there is that if you haven't read every word of the book that you think is perfect, you are not a real Christian. You're a poser. And you should face the fact that you're a poser, because if you actually believed that the word of God was perfect, you would read it because you'd find it interesting. But most people don't read it because they're afraid of what they'll find when they do. And that's my big point. People are afraid to read the Bible because they're afraid to come face to face with the fact that the Bible is not a good book at all. In fact, it's just a piece of crap.
If we could just sort of go back to the subject at hand, on just the subject of the monument, like what is like your goal with that? I mean, is there sort of a genuine desire to sort of promote, skepticism and free thought, or is it more just, a counter to the existing monuments of with the Ten Commandments?
Much more the latter. It's there to counter, okay? Mm-hmm. And if they took the Ten Commandments away, we would take our monument away. Mm-hmm. This is an attempt to teach, yes. It's an attempt to educate, yes. But number one, the purpose of the monument is to protect our equality and to assert our equality, okay? Yeah. If they're going to put something there, we're going to put something there, even if we think it's going to make the lawn look littered with religious opinions, even though we know that on our tails are going to be other religious groups that want to put up their stuff, and there's going to be more religion than non-religion, but we'll still have an equal place. Even though, what we're doing here is protecting the equality. What we're doing here is we're taking Christianity off the pedestal that it seeks to be on. Remember, the whole reason that Christianity is so powerful in this country is that it uses the government to legitimize itself. Mm-hmm. And that's why we get the whole idea of, this is a Christian nation, is all about Christianity having advantages and privileges above and beyond everybody else. And the monument's there to make sure that Christianity is placed on an even keel with atheism as is guaranteed by the Constitution.
Hearing about this, the story is that, the Christians sort of opened up this loophole with the free speech zone, and we're sort of turning that loophole into a Pandora's box, where now everyone should be able to have their religious monument there, which is actually pretty awesome.
They did it as soon. Yeah. It is as soon, and just to be sure, just to be frank with who's to blame here. Okay, the Christian Men's Fellowship did this. They put it in there. They insisted that it be a free speech zone. They were granted the free speech zone, but a free speech zone means there's going to be free speech. And if we let one person, and I don't care what it is, if we let one viewpoint be the monopoly in a free speech zone, that's not free speech at all. Absolutely. That's not free speech at all. And the beauty of this country is freedom, and freedom of speech means you're going to get multiple points of view, and that's what the city of Stark is about to be faced with, and they're going to have to deal with it. And so are the other cities in this country where they've used a free speech zone to put up a Ten Commandments monument. They're going to have to deal with the repercussions. They're going to have to deal with the atheists who want to put up a monument. They're going to have to deal with the pagans and the Satanists who want to put up a monument. They're going to have to deal with everybody, and that's great, because that's freedom of speech. Yes. The only people who are not going to like that are the people who really want Christianity to be placed on a pedestal above and beyond everybody else.
You're kind of forcing them to acknowledge the diversity of thought in this country, and I think that's quite right.
That's it. That's all it is.
So, like you said, well, you've already touched on never mind, you've already answered my next question, which was going to be, how do you know when it's going to win or when it's kind of a Quixotic battle?
Well, as soon as the Quixotic battles are when you're dealing with 10 commandments that have been up for 100, 150 years. Like if you're trying to take the 10 commandments, like on the top of the Supreme Court, there are sculptures of Moses and Muhammad. Yes, that's Muhammad. It's not some Arabic guy. It's Muhammad. Let's not forget that there's a carving of Muhammad on the top of the Supreme Court. Oh my goodness, there's a drawing of Muhammad on top of the Supreme Court. But at any rate, this, if we were trying to get that taken down, which wouldn't be right, because what's up there is obviously not an endorsement of one religion. It's a whole bunch of different things. But if we were trying to take that stuff down, that wouldn't be right, because there's a bunch of other religions up there, and there's a bunch of other places, a bunch of homages to lots of religions and thinkers up there. That would be silly. However, when you're talking about a single placement of a 10 Commandments or other religious monument on public ground, there is no choice. If it's on public ground, they have to make it a free speech zone. If they don't make it a free speech zone, they are breaking the law by endorsing one religion over another, and they are breaking the law by treating the citizens of that county differently based on their religious beliefs. That's against the law. They have to make it a free speech zone. And when they make it a free speech zone, they have to let us in. They don't get a choice. And they all know it, and that is why Stark yielded in the negotiations. That's why we're doing this, because Stark knew they wouldn't win the case if we went forward.
So in other words, you didn't pick it just because of, in honor of Pete Stark.
No, and I'm sure Pete would love to be there, but unfortunately, it's not about Pete Stark. Although I do love me some Pete Stark. He's a heck of a guy. So that's why Stark yielded, because they knew they had to. They had to, and they knew they had to. And all around the country where you see 10 Commandments monuments that are sitting in public courtrooms or public courthouses, those are free speech zones, or they're breaking the law. And that's something that we have to defend, because if we don't defend it, it becomes precedent setting. It becomes, well, you never did anything for this place. Now this other place is doing the same thing. Why would you have your rights here when you didn't even exercise your rights back there? It is our responsibility as American citizens to protect our rights, and it's our responsibility as atheists to protect America from theocracy. And it's our responsibility to therefore exercise our rights in a free speech zone and put something in there to represent us, always giving the town the opportunity to say, all right, this free speech zone is over. Take all this stuff away and give me some green grass, because that's what it should be. That's what it all should be. Stark shouldn't have anything on their courthouse lawn. But if they're going to have a 10 Commandments, they're going to hear from the atheists as well.
All right, well, let me get back on to, again, you're actually sort of become into prominence with the community because of your numerous appearances on, well, most famously, your interview with Bill O'Reilly, in which he discussed the tides going in and out. I really got to wonder, like, when you're making that face, for which is now like the black and white meme, like, what was going through your head at that moment?
Sure. Well, you have to understand that this was that specific time was my second time on his show, and this was the first time that I had sat down with him before the show, and actually had a conversation with Bill O'Reilly.
Oh wow! And
off camera, he's intelligent. Off camera, he is well spoken. He is knowledgeable, and he knew a lot about the atheist movement that I did not think he would know about. And we got going into an intelligent conversation, a nice, cordial, intelligent conversation about the atheist movement. And then the lights turned on, the camera started rolling, and he became Bill O'Reilly. and what was going through my head when he sat back and he said, let me tell you why I believe in God and it's not a scam. He says, tide goes in, tide goes out. And I made that face, and what was going through my mind was, and if you watch the tape, if you watch the actual recording, you'll see that following that look is another look of almost epiphany. And that's the moment that I realized that I was talking to a fictional character. That look of incredulity is when I'm thinking, why is this intelligent man talking to me, saying something so outrageously stupid? And then the very next sentence, I realize, oh, he's playing a part. He's playing a character. Oh, this is an act. Oh, I'm speaking to a fictional person right now. And then I started to deal with him as a fictional character. And that's how I deal with him now, as a fictional character on television. Off camera, I hate to say it. I hate to say this, but off camera, Bill O'Reilly is a smart guy.
Well, he's sort of
it's pains.
He is Colbert.
He is Colbert. Yes, he is Colbert. He definitely is Colbert, who I also have to shout out to, because what some people don't know is that Stephen Colbert actually gave me my Twitter handle, which is Mr. Atheist Pants. He actually, when the tide goes in, tide goes out thing came out, he talked about that instance on his show. And back then, of course, I had my goatee. And he said, well, let me tell you something, Mr. Atheist Pants. You shouldn't look like the devil when you're on television. And that was when I stuck it. I kept that. So the answer to your question is that I believe that, and I have, I'm not inside Bill O'Reilly's head, but my personal opinion, Bill O'Reilly's an intelligent person putting on a show for Fox News. And I think he's much smarter than he lets on to be. And I don't know that that's good. I don't know that that's ethical, but that's my personal opinion. He turns on the show for the show.
So is that's something you've had to then, has that carried on over into other shows? Maybe Rachel Maddow is playing a part, or people on the left is equally as proffering our persona. Have you had a sense of that?
I'm sure it's possible. I don't know anything, obviously, firsthand. I think Wolf Blitzer might fit into that category, given the whole Oklahoma thing. I don't think Sean Hannity is faking it. I think Sean Hannity that you see on TV is the real Sean Hannity, which also ain't good. But I don't know what's better, to have somebody so blindly ignorant or to have somebody lying about being so blindly ignorant. I'm not sure which is better and which is worse. But I don't know anybody on the left side that I think is faking it. But because of the nature of my job and because of the nature of television, they like confrontation much better than information. Yeah. So because they like confrontation better than information, I go on Fox News a lot more often than I go on CNN or MSNBC.
Yeah, you're a good foil. Well, that's just, and
exactly.
that face is probably what he was trying to get you outside of your game and see how you respond.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was trying to distract me from the conversation I was having with him. Yeah. What I was trying to do, I was trying to nail him into a point, that's saying, okay, you're an intelligent man, you're a skeptic for a living, and you tell me in all honesty that you think that there's an invisible man in the sky. Let me tell you something, Bill. I don't think you believe that. I started down that road. He saw me going down that road. And then he pulled the tide goes in, tide goes out in an effort to change my course. Mm-hmm. And it worked. It totally worked. But I mean, yeah, but he is, he's a master of his craft. And you have to respect him for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, again, I was also, before the interview, I was just doing some research, just watching some of your other interviews on Fox News, especially like with Megyn Kelly. A lot of times, they sort of, it seems they bring you on a lot of times, and then they kind of post you, like, whenever something apparently anti-Christian is, they post you with this, like, oh, well, we wouldn't do this with, if it was Islam, because that's one of the things I keep hearing leveled against atheists, is that we only criticize Christianity but never Islam, which is patently false.
Of course it's patently false, and it makes them out to be the victims. It's very intentional. It makes them out to be the poor, helpless Christian victims who are the majority of this country and have had every president since, Taft, or even before that. They want to make themselves out to be the victim because we are attacking their equality.
Here we are attacking the other cheek.
Right. We're attacking their privilege so they feel downtrodden because they're being made to be only equal. So that's the privilege that they feel as attacking. And that's why when they bring me on Fox, so often they bring me on without an opponent. Then they take me off, and then they talk about me after I've gone on. Yeah. So there was one time when I went on Megyn Kelly to talk about the 9/11 cross case, and then after I was off, they brought on somebody else who actually blamed the atheists for 9/11.
Wow.
And it was amazing the level of ignorance that they had, but that ignorance was not challenged. I mean, for them to actually say that the atheists caused 9/11, it was just an embarrassment for me to have been on that show, and I would have ripped that person apart. But they know that, so they don't bring me on opposite that. Another case is in the Star case. If you don't look at appearances, but look at Fox News shows about the Stark Monument, they have 3 religious conservatives, and the liberal is a priest. And they're all talking about how terrible we are for mocking religion and for putting up this horrible, horrible monument of hate, whereas their monument actually, proscribes my death, and my monument, our monument, just talks the truth. So it's amazing how chicken Fox News is and how much they'll go to any length. But at the same time, I do like going on Megyn Kelly's show. I find her to be a fair host when I'm on it with her, and I find her to be engaging, and I find her to be intelligent on and off camera.
That seems like such a staple of, I don't even think it's necessarily just Fox News, but like in the 24-hour news cycles, when they'll have like panels of people discussing something who are almost always all on the same side of on one side of the issue. Like one of the famous things, like it was a while ago, a few years ago, they had like talking about atheism, and it was, okay, it's like 3 Christians and a Jew talking about how atheists should shut up. And even more recently, I think it was Fox News where like it was like they had a round table of guys talk about how terrible it is that 40% of women are the primary breadwinners in houses.
Yeah, including their token.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you see Megyn Kelly's answer to that?
Yes.
That was pretty kick-ass. That was pretty kick-ass when Megyn Kelly brought two people from those panel onto her show.
Mm-hmm.
And said, "Hey, I'm the breadwinner. I make money here. Tell me again how I'm hurting America's values by making more money than my husband. Tell me again how I'm hurting America." And you should have heard Lou Dobbs. Man, what a crapper he is. Lou Dobbs would not answer the question. He was talking about, single parent families and single parent. And she was like, well, this is not about single parents. This is about women breadwinners. And Dobbs would not answer the question. He was like, well, I think this is really about single family parents. And it wasn't about single family parents at all. It was about misogyny, pure unadulterated misogyny coming out of Lou Dobbs's mouth and him not being able to justify it. So he just avoided the subject over and over and over again. And there again, taking Lou Dobbs down a peg in my book of ethical journalists.
A Dobbs gallop.
I really would like somebody. Exactly. I would really like for somebody, and if there's any reporters out there listening, I would really like somebody to step up in my game and actually be a good reporter and impress me, because I haven't heard a lot of that recently at all. I've been very depressed between Lou Dobbs and Wolf Blitzer. I've been pretty depressed on the whole on the whole reporter thing. It's too bad.
Yeah.
And Stuart Varney's a joke too. I mean. He would love to be Sean Hannity. He would love to be not the financial guy, but he's not. And so when he brings me on his show, he's just awful. And this is probably going to stop me from going on his show again. But you know what? I mean, he brings me in and he talks terribly. He treats me awfully. He treats atheists terribly. He asked me if I was – he said Madeleine Murray O'Hare was tortured and killed, but you don't care, do you, because you're an atheist.
Oh,
well, you know what? Jesus, fuck,
wow.
Man, fuck you. Really? How awful is that? How awful is that? How about if you said, "Oh, well, Jews, Jews don't care about ethics, right? How about you, Scientologists? You guys don't. Oh, Muslims, they don't believe in Jesus. You don't believe in love. You don't believe in caring." It was a horribly bigoted thing to say, and I don't think he meant it. I think he was just trying to be Sean Hannity.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal opinion, and it's a lousy place to which to aspire. And I hope he takes a step up in his future, because I'm very, very tired, growing very, very weary of the disrespect that Fox News shoves me all the time,
Mm-hmm.
with notable exceptions, including Megyn Kelly. And I think who is one of my favorites is Pat Buchanan.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly, Pat Buchanan. I've been on. He used to do the Joe Scarborough show,
Mm-hmm.
and I did, and he was the anchor for the Joe Scarborough show for, I believe, 4 or 5 of my appearances,
Mm-hmm.
and he was good. He was good, and he was even, and he was just. Even when it was 3 Christians plus him against me, he was fair.
I wonder if it's because he's very comfortable.
He went up.
Oh, sorry. I'm wondering if it's because he's very comfortable in his crazy beliefs, that he doesn't feel threatened by you.
Or maybe just because I think maybe he's more of the older guard, because we was in the McLaughlin group and all that. So before all this Fox News shouting journalism kind of became a thing.
Yeah, I think he's more comfortable. I think he's more knowledgeable, and I think the knowledge makes him more comfortable. And I think he's almost more separated from Christian conservatism. Not that he's not a Christian conservative, but I think he kind of recognizes that the country's a melting pot, and that there's a lot of us out here, and that this is all part of the process, part of the growth of America as a nation, as opposed to everybody who disagrees with him being evil. But again, my speculation, I don't know the man personally. I've just been on his show a few times.
One of the other big issues that sort of came out recently was the Pope's claim that, well, I mean, that's what the spin on it I keep hearing is that atheists can get into heaven. But the more I hear about it, the less I think that's what he actually meant.
Well, I think he meant it, and I think the Vatican covered it up. I think the Vatican reacted real quickly. The whole difference between redemption and salvation. They really are dancing around this quite a bit. He said that Jesus redeemed all people, even the atheists, because we can do good. I think what he's trying to do is extend a hand and be nice to atheists. I think that's what he was trying to do. I think he's trying to show how different he is from Pope Benedict, the child rapist hider and the international criminal. I think he's trying to distance himself from that and actually, or I should say alleged international criminal. I think he's trying to distance himself from that and show how different he is from that Pope by extending the hand and saying, oh, look at how nice, even atheists can be nice people. And credit has to be given where credit is due. Okay, that's a thing. That's not something that we should slap away and say, screw you, Pope. We don't want your olive branch. I think it was an olive branch, or at least an attempt at an olive branch, and I think we have to take it that way. I think I would much rather see actions versus words. I would much rather him start worrying about saving lives of people in Africa by saying it's okay to use condoms when you have sex. I think it'd be much better if he were to say, okay, Jesus supposedly was talking about the separation of church and state when he said, give unto Caesar that which is Caesar and give unto Rome that which is Rome's. So let's actually do that and stay out of American and other national politics. I would like to see some actions. I would like to see a few $1 billion donated to help plant some crops in Africa and feed some homeless people and clothe some naked people. But if he's going to start by saying, hey, you know what, those atheists are nice people too, if that's a start, we have to recognize it for what it is.
Right.
Okay, we have to recognize it for what it is. He was not trying to be he was going out of his way to open a hand. And I think he might be, and the jury's way out, but he might be trying to civilize the Vatican. And if he's trying to civilize the Vatican, then we should help him.
Yeah,
and
he has a tough job, a long way to go.
He has a very tough job. He's got a very long way to go. Is he actually trying to do that? We don't know. Will he succeed? We don't know. But if I can help him, and that's why, a whole bunch of press called me when he did that. And my basic response was, well, that's nice. Let's see some actions. Let's see some actions over the words, but the words are nice. And we have to acknowledge that the words were nice. We have to acknowledge that that was an olive branch. And we can't slap it away so much as we say, well, okay, we looked at it. We'll look at this Pope with an extremely cautious optimism. He said something nice. When Obama got elected, he said something nice and then did nothing since then for us. Okay, he opened up his inauguration and said, and this country is Christians and Jews and non-believers. And that's pretty much all he has done. So maybe the Pope will do the exact same thing, or maybe it's a trend, and maybe he's going to try and improve relations, and maybe he's going to try to civilize the Vatican and make it more humane and bring the Catholic Church into the 21st century. We don't know, but that was an extended hand, and we have to recognize it for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a sad state of affairs when just acknowledging that we exist as atheists is kind of a radical thing that we have to, hey, that's a bone we're being thrown,
From which the Vatican had to recover.
Yeah, exactly.
From which the Vatican had to recover. No. We didn't mean to be that nice to atheists. We just meant to be a little bit nice to atheists.
It is bad for the brand,
Well, I mean, once you give up the need for Christianity for salvation, you give up the need for religion on the whole. You give up the need for Christianity on the whole.
You mean I
I
don't
mean,
have to be on my knees?
that's the no, you don't. You know, once you give up actually the whole concept of original sin, you give up Christianity because you give up the need for a redeemer or a savior, which is why it's the very reason why Christianity is so loath to admit that evolution has occurred. Because if there's evolution, if evolution happened, which of course is scientific proven fact, there was no Adam and Eve for sure. And if there was no Adam and Eve for sure, the creation story is wrong for sure. And if the creation story is wrong for sure, there was no original sin. And if there was no original sin, there is no need for a savior. And that's why Christianity will hold on so tightly to the creationist viewpoint, despite the 100% amount of data that proves it wrong.
So let me ask a question. I know one of the kind of nauseatingly frequent criticisms of new atheism, however one might define it, is that it is unaware of the less fundamental variants of religion. And a little thought experiment is something I try to do is what would happen if every fundamentalist strain of every religion vanished and this kind of Shelby Spong, Reinhold Niebuhr type religion took its place? Would we have a need for an atheist movement at that point, or would it still need to exist?
It's not about the elimination of religion, and it's not about the elimination of fundamentalist Christianity. It's about the protection of the separation of church and state. It's about equality from the government. We do not need American atheists if fundamentalism exists as it does today, but the separation of church and state is safe. Okay? American atheists has no need to exist if atheists are equal in society. So a lot of times, yes, we fight against the fundamentalists, but that's because the fundamentalists are the enemies of equality.
Right.
And if the fundamentalists would just lay off the government, if the fundamentalists would lay off the schools and lay off our children, go away, just get away from science class, get away from national days of prayer and praying for rain, and stop giving us really dumb, stupid politicians from which to choose. Give us educated people. If fundamentalism existed in all its current glory, for lack of a better word, but they stayed away from the state, if they just kept to themselves and did their thing, like so many religious moderates do, there would be no need for an American Atheists. American Atheists is not a club for atheists. It's a civil rights group protecting the rights of atheists and the equality for atheists. So once those things are protected, whether or not fundamentalist Christianity exists or not, we become a lot less relevant. The bad news is that that's not happening because fundamentalist Christianity cannot exist and thrive without the legitimacy that's granted by government. That's why they strive to get themselves injected. That's why they strive to dumb down the science text. That's why they strive to get Bibles readings in schools. That's why they're striving and trying anything they can to get as much from the government as they can, to get as much infiltration into the government as they can, because without it, their logic is so flawed. Their content is so nullified by simple thought. They cannot exist without those boosts. So there's this never-ending cycle here. Fundamentalist Christianity is the enemy of atheism, not because they have a different view on religion, but because fundamentalist Christianity cannot exist in an environment where church and state are truly separate. It cannot thrive. It'll exist, but it cannot thrive.
Right. Well, that's an interesting point and very valid one. I think that and one of my favorite responses when I hear somebody essentially say that, well, I'm a liberal Christian, you're battling the fundamentalists, which I was a liberal Christian when I was a Christian, but even then, I'd like to see my challenge in response is, well, then I need more people like you to fight against the fundamentalists, because we have our hands full with those people, because they're already filling the school boards. They're already doing, the things that you're mentioning, breaking the wall of separation.
Right. And that does not just go for Christianity. That goes for Islam and Judaism as well. You've got everybody's every time a Muslim terrorist does something terroristic, you got a whole bunch of Muslims saying, "Oh, that's not our Islam. That's not our Islam." That's crap. It absolutely is every bit as much your Islam as everything else. It's all individual, and it's up to the moderate Muslims to fight against the terrorists. It's up to the moderate Christians to fight against the fundamentalists, and it's up to the moderate Jews to fight against the Hasidics, who rape their own children, who suck baby penises even if they get herpes from it. It's crazy stuff out there. And the moderates, the problem with the moderates is they think very, very wrongly that atheists are somehow the bad guys and that the fundamentalists are the good guys, because the fundamentalists are closer to them than we are in thought. But in ethics, in morals, we are much closer. We secular humanists, we atheists, are much closer to the moderate Christians and the moderate Muslims and the moderate Jews than those people are to the fundamentalists of their individual religions. We are the ethical correct ones. They know it, but they won't listen because they think that they're somehow betraying their faith if they take our side against the bad guys of their own religion.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
Our first guest on the show that was hosted by us after we took it over was Herb Silverman, whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday, Herb.
Happy birthday, Herb.
Happy birthday, Herb.
So I asked him, all right, whether or not you guys are not related, correct?
No, we're not related. There are lots of Silvermans in the atheist movement, and none of us are related to any of us.
That's so weird.
Well, I mean, look at my name. My name is David Silverman. It's like John Smith for Jews. My one joke, the one joke that I ever actually came up with, and it's funny, is my parents were originally going to name me Jew, but they decided it wasn't Jewish sounding enough, so they called me David Silverman instead.
That would have kept you out of Fox News, I think.
All right, well, Dave, unless there's anything else you want to add.
I would like to say that anybody who would like to come to the Stark Memorial is welcome to do so. The website is atheists.org, atheists.org. The unveiling is on June 29th in Stark, Florida.
Nice.
There's a room block at the Days Inn, and we're going to have a nice party afterwards. There's going to be a band, there's going to be food, and there's going to be lots and lots of press. So we would love to have a lot of turnout from lots and lots of atheists. So if there are any atheists in the area, please check it out on June 29th. Again, my Twitter handle is at Mr. Atheist Pants. And I look forward to speaking with you all again. I hope to be on the show again soon.
Oh, great. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. It was great having you on. I think you're the first guest on the show that I could actually talk about to people, and maybe they kind of know who you are. It's like the guy that O'Reilly was talking to who had the tides rolling in, and then there's that meme face like, oh, yeah, it's that guy?
That guy.
Yeah.
The WTF guy.
Yeah. That's one of the great things about becoming sort of an actual member of this community. I get to meet so many people that the people in my real life circles have no idea who they are. But,
I know lots of them.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thank you very much for having me on. I really do appreciate your time, and I really do appreciate all the activism that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
As well with you. Great to talk to you.
All right.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Okay, bye.
That was the Secular Nation podcast. I am always as Tim Brannon. My co-host is Michael X. Our executive producer is Tom Melchiori. The Secular Nation podcast is brought to you by the Atheist Alliance of America. If you would like to become a member, you can go to our website at atheistallianceamerica.org and click Join. Once again, this is Tim Bratton of the Secular Nation Podcast, signing off.